my sister ripped my newborn baby out of my arms, then blocked me out of his life completely. My whole family supported her. So I put together a memory book, sent it to my son, and let the truth speak for itself. 18 months later, she was knocking on my door, asking if we could share him after all. I had just spent 17 hours in labor and was holding my baby for the first time when my sister forcefully ripped him away from me. Sorry sis, but I've changed my mind on this. I actually want him. The worst part was I couldn't even do anything. He was legally hers. I had carried him through her egg and IVF. And even though she swore to me the entire pregnancy that she'd let me keep it and make my dream of motherhood come true, none of that mattered in the eyes of the law. I went home crushed the very next day, and to make matters even worse, I walked in on a motherhood party I didn't even know was happening, congratulating my sister on her new chapter in life. Everyone was crowding around her and the baby, ignoring me like I was invisible. And every time I even looked at my son, someone would remind me I was just the auntie and should be happy for my sister. After that, my family doubled down. In every group chat and family text, the baby was always my sister's little angel. And if I so much as hinted at being sad, someone would jump in with, just let it go. Vanessa deserved this baby. You'll always be special as aunt. When I showed up to the next family dinner, I was introduced to my own son as auntie, like nothing had happened. My mom would tell me to smile for the camera while my sister handed out birth announcement cards with her name on them and mine nowhere. Every milestone went the same way. When the baby rolled over for the first time, my sister posted a video and tagged herself as boy mom with a long post about how she'd bounced back so well from her pregnancy. Her friends commented about how amazing she looked for just having a baby. I heard them talking in the kitchen at a birthday party, saying they couldn't believe how my sister had kept her body looking so perfect even after birth. She just laughed and acted humble while I stood off to the side, trying not to cry. The weirdest part was how my sister went out of her way to block me from her stories and baby posts. I'd only find out about things secondhand, from a cousin or old family friend who would say, "Did you see the cute photos your sister posted?" My sister even threw out or hid anything from my pregnancy. She never let me have a copy of the ultrasound. She stashed away my old hospital bracelet. She refused to talk about the day he was born. If I brought it up, she'd tell me not to confuse things for the baby and not to make it about me. It got to a point where I just shut down. I sent a birthday card for his half birthday. No reply. I dropped off a little jacket I'd bought. She left it on the porch and later posted a pic of the baby wearing something else, tagging a different friend as the best gift giver. I started going to therapy. My friends from college, the only people who knew the truth, tried to cheer me up. I journaled every day, trying to make sense of what had happened. By the time my son's first birthday rolled around, I hadn't seen him in months. My family had planned a big party and didn't even invite me. A cousin slipped up and mentioned the event in a group chat. I called my mom, desperate, and asked why I couldn't come. She just sighed and told me, "You know how you get. We don't want you to make things about yourself." My sister texted me a day later and said, "Don't show up. It's confusing for the baby." I was so angry and hurt that I couldn't even cry. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg them anymore. I wasn't going to ask for permission to love my own son. I spent the next day putting together a memory book for him. I filled it with photos from my pregnancy, ultrasound pictures, journal entries, and a letter. I wrote about how much I loved him and how he was wanted, even if the world never let me say it out loud. I mailed it to my sister's house, addressed to my son. A few days after his birthday, my mom texted me saying they needed to talk. I walked into the living room and the whole family was there. My sister, my parents, even my aunt. My sister was furious. She shoved the memory book into my hands and told me to stop confusing the baby and let go. My mom said I was being selfish. Then my son started crying, loud, panicked, the kind of cry that cuts through everything. Nobody could calm him down. My sister was frantic. My mom snapped at her to do something. Without thinking, I picked him up and started humming the lullaby I used to sing to him in the womb. He quieted almost instantly and just stared at me. The whole room went silent. No one knew what to say. My dad looked away. My aunt looked baffled. My sister yanked him back, but he kept reaching for me. For a minute, nobody could pretend anymore. Even the people who hated me the most just stood there, not knowing what to do with what they'd just seen. I left right after that, knowing things had just changed, and I was right. Because although my parents went colder than ever, a couple of cousins started texting me, saying my sister wasn't a fit and nurturing mother, that she was doing my son more harm than good. That's when one of them, Megan, texted me. "You can't let her keep him. You just can't. Please do something." I sat in my car for almost an hour after that. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even put the key in the ignition. I kept replaying that moment when my son reached for me, his little fingers stretching toward me while my sister pulled him away. My phone kept buzzing with texts from my cousin Megan. She was sending me photos she'd secretly taken of my son looking unhappy at family gatherings. In one, my sister was on her phone while he cried in his high chair. Another showed him reaching for a toy while my sister scrolled through Instagram. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what Megan had said about my sister not being fit. The truth was, my sister Vanessa had always been the golden child. Pretty, popular, married to a dentist named Greg, but she'd also always been selfish. Growing up, she'd take my things without asking. In college, she'd borrow my car and return it with an empty tank. Even as adults, she'd cancel plans last minute if something better came along. The surrogacy had started as her idea. Vanessa couldn't carry a baby due to some health issues. I was single, 32, and wanted a child but couldn't afford it on my own. So we made a deal. I'd carry her baby, her egg, her husband's sperm, and she'd let me raise it. We'd tell everyone it was mine. She just wanted the genetic connection but not the responsibility. At least that's what she told me. I should have gotten it in writing. I should have known better. But she was my sister, and I trusted her. The whole pregnancy, she acted like she wasn't interested. She skipped doctor appointments. She never wanted to feel him kick. Then suddenly, the minute he was born, something changed. She wanted to be mommy after all. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face anyone. Around noon, another cousin, Tyler, called me. He wasn't as close to the family as Megan, but he'd been at the birthday party. "Hey, I heard what happened yesterday," he said. "That was messed up." I didn't know what to say. Tyler had never gotten involved in family drama before. "Look," he continued, "I know the whole story. Megan told me, and I've seen how Vanessa treats that kid when no one's watching. She hands him off to your mom or the babysitter every chance she gets." I wasn't surprised. Vanessa had always liked the idea of things more than the reality. She wanted the cute Instagram posts and the congratulations, not the 3 a.m. feedings or diaper changes. Tyler suggested I start documenting everything. Every time Vanessa neglected my son, every time she lied about being the birth mother. He thought I might have a case for custody someday. I wasn't sure about that, but I knew I couldn't just give up. That afternoon, I got a text from my mom asking me to come over for dinner that weekend. I was suspicious. house. After yesterday's confrontation, why would she want me there? But I agreed. Any chance to see my son was worth it. When Saturday came, I showed up at my parents' house with a knot in my stomach. My dad answered the door with an awkward half smile. Inside, my mom was setting the table while Vanessa sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. My son was in a playpen nearby, babbling to himself and trying to stack blocks. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. My mom kept making forced small talk about the weather. My dad kept refilling his wine glass. Vanessa barely looked up from her phone. I went straight to the playpen and crouched down to say hi to my son. He immediately smiled and reached for me. "Don't get him all worked up before dinner," Vanessa said without looking up. I bit my tongue and just handed him a block instead. Throughout dinner, I noticed how Vanessa barely interacted with him. She didn't help him eat, didn't wipe his face when he made a mess. My mom did all of that while Vanessa complained about how tired she was from mommy duties. After dinner, while my mom and Vanessa were in the kitchen, my dad pulled me aside. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Listen," he said quietly. "I know this whole situation is complicated, but you need to be careful. Vanessa's been saying some concerning things about you." My heart dropped. "What things?" "She's telling people you're obsessed, that you're trying to steal her baby. She's even talking about getting a restraining order." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was the one who'd been wronged, yet somehow she was painting me as the villain. Classic Vanessa, always twisting things to make herself the victim. As I was processing this, my phone buzzed. It was Megan again. "Check your email now." I excused myself to the bathroom and opened my email. Megan had forwarded me a private message from Vanessa to a mutual friend. In it, Vanessa admitted the whole thing, that I was the surrogate, that she'd promised to let me raise him, that she'd changed her mind at the last minute. She even bragged about how she'd outsmarted me by not putting anything in writing. My hands were shaking as I read it. This was the first real evidence I had. I took screenshots and saved them immediately. When I came out of the bathroom, I couldn't even look at Vanessa without wanting to scream, but I kept my cool for my son's sake. As I was leaving, I hugged my son goodbye. He clung to me, not wanting to let go. Vanessa had to pry him away, which made him start crying. As I walked to my car, I could still hear him wailing inside the house. The sound followed me all the way home, echoing in my mind as I tried to fall asleep. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about what my dad had said about the restraining order. If Vanessa went through with that, I might never see my son again. I needed to do something. But what? I wasn't rich. I couldn't afford some lengthy legal battle. And legally, the cards were stacked against me. The next morning, I got another text from Tyler. "Family brunch at Aunt Carol's next Sunday. Vanessa will be there with the baby. So will a lot of extended family who don't know the full story. Might be a good time to set the record straight." I stared at my phone for a long time. Was I ready to blow up my entire family? To tell everyone the truth about what Vanessa had done? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. I spent the next week gathering evidence. I asked Megan to forward me any other messages she had from Vanessa. I dug through my own texts and emails from the pregnancy, looking for anything where Vanessa mentioned our agreement. I found a few vague references, but nothing concrete. Vanessa had been careful. I also called my old OBGYN and asked for copies of all my medical records from the pregnancy. The receptionist sounded confused when I explained I wasn't the legal mother, but she said she'd mail them to me anyway. I wasn't sure what good they would do, but I wanted to have everything documented. By the time Sunday rolled around, I was a nervous wreck. I hadn't decided if I was going to say anything at Aunt Carol's brunch. Part of me wanted to scream the truth from the rooftops. Another part was terrified of making things worse. I arrived at Aunt Carol's house a little late on purpose. I didn't want to be the first one there. When I walked in, the living room was already full of relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins I hadn't seen in years. My son was sitting in a high chair, banging a spoon on the tray. Vanessa was across the room talking to our cousin Heather. Aunt Carol hugged me and told me I looked tired. I forced a smile and headed for the buffet table. I wasn't hungry, but I needed something to do with my hands. As I was filling my plate, my Uncle Russell came up beside me. "So, how's the auntie life treating you?" he asked, completely oblivious to the knife he was twisting in my heart. I mumbled something about it being great and quickly moved away. I found a seat in the corner where I could watch my son without being too obvious. He kept looking around the room, and when his eyes landed on me, he smiled and waved his little hand. My heart melted. Halfway through brunch, Vanessa stood up and clinked her glass for attention. Everyone quieted down as she announced that she and Greg had just bought a new house in a different school district. They'd be moving at the end of the month. I nearly choked on my orange juice. A new house? In a different area? She was going to take my son even further away from me. I glanced at Megan across the room, and she gave me a subtle nod. This was it. If I was going to say something, it had to be now. I stood up, my legs shaking. "Actually, I have an announcement too." The room went quiet. Vanessa's smile froze on her face. "I just wanted to say," I started, then faltered. Everyone was staring at me. My mom was giving me a warning look. My dad was suddenly very interested in his coffee cup. I just wanted to say congratulations on the new house. I sat back down, hating myself for chickening out. Vanessa's smile returned, triumphant. The conversation around the room resumed. After brunch, I helped Aunt Carol clean up in the kitchen. She'd always been the most level-headed of my relatives. As we loaded the dishwasher, I worked up the courage to tell her the truth. I kept my voice low, explaining the whole situation, the surrogacy, Vanessa's promise, the betrayal. Aunt Carol listened without interrupting. When I finished, she put down the dish she was holding and gave me a long look. "I had my suspicions," she said finally. "The timing never made sense to me. Vanessa wasn't showing, then suddenly she had a baby, and you disappeared for months." I felt a surge of hope. Someone believed me. "Have you talked to a lawyer?" she asked. I shook my head. "I can't afford it, and anyway, legally she's the mother. It was her egg." Aunt Carol dried her hands on a towel. "My neighbor's daughter is a family lawyer. Let me talk to her, see what she thinks." I thanked her, trying not to get my hopes up. As I was leaving, I noticed Vanessa watching me from across the room. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Vanessa's husband, Greg. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "Not over the phone. Can you meet me at Riverside Park in an hour?" I agreed, confused and a little scared. Greg and I had never been close. During my pregnancy, he'd mostly stayed out of the way, letting Vanessa handle everything. I hadn't spoken to him directly in months. I got to the park early and sat on a bench near the playground. Greg showed up right on time, looking stressed. He sat down beside me but kept a careful distance. "Vanessa told me what happened at your parents' house," he said without preamble. "About the baby recognizing you." I nodded, not sure where this was going. "She also told me you've been harassing her, trying to confuse our son about who his real mother is." My jaw dropped. "That's not true. I've barely even seen him." Greg held up a hand. "Let me finish." I believed her at first, but then I found something something strange when I was packing for the move. Medical records hidden in the back of her closet. Records of your pregnancy, not hers. My heart started racing. So you know. I know she wasn't pregnant. Yes, I know you carried him. What I don't know is why she lied to me about it. I stared at him in shock. She told you she was pregnant? The whole time? Greg nodded, looking miserable. She said she wanted to keep the surrogacy private, just between you two. She wore those fake pregnancy bellies when we went out. I never questioned it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Vanessa hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to her own husband. I told Greg everything, including the part where she'd promised I could raise the baby. That doesn't make any sense, he said, frowning. Vanessa wanted a baby more than anything. Why would she give him up? I shrugged. That's what she told me. Maybe she changed her mind, or maybe she was lying from the start. I don't know anymore. Greg was quiet for a long time, watching some kids play on the swings. Finally, he stood up. I need to think about all this, and I need to talk to Vanessa. I grabbed his arm. Please don't tell her we met. She's already threatening a restraining order. He hesitated, then nodded. I won't. Not yet, anyway. After Greg left, I sat in the park for another hour, trying to process everything. If Vanessa had lied to Greg about the surrogacy, what else had she lied about? And now that Greg knew the truth, would it change anything? That evening, Aunt Carol called. She'd spoken to her neighbor's daughter, the lawyer. The news wasn't good. Without a written agreement, I had no legal claim to my son. The fact that I'd carried him meant nothing in the eyes of the law. The egg was Vanessa's, the sperm was Greg's. They were the legal parents. But, Aunt Carol added, she did say there might be one option. If you could prove Vanessa is an unfit mother, you might have a case for visitation as a biological relative. Unfit. The word hung in the air. Was Vanessa truly unfit? She was neglectful, yes. Self-absorbed, definitely. But unfit in the legal sense? I wasn't sure. The next day, I went back to work, trying to maintain some semblance of a normal life. My coworkers knew I'd been through a family issue, but didn't know the details. I was grateful for the distraction of spreadsheets and meetings. During my lunch break, I got a text from Megan. Emergency, call me now. I stepped outside and called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. Vanessa just dropped the baby off at your mom's and took off. She and Greg had a huge fight last night. Your mom's freaking out because she has that doctor's appointment today and can't watch him. My heart leaped. I can watch him. That's why I'm calling. Your mom's desperate. I told her I'd ask if you're available. 20 minutes later, I was at my parents' house. My mom looked frazzled, trying to get ready for her appointment while my son cried in his playpen. Thank goodness you're here, she said, grabbing her purse. I've been calling everyone. His diaper bag is by the door. I should be back in a couple hours. And just like that, I was alone with my son for the first time since he was born. I picked him up and held him close, breathing in his baby smell. He stopped crying almost immediately, looking up at me with curious eyes. I carried him to the couch and sat down, just holding him, memorizing every detail of his face. We spent the afternoon playing on the floor, reading books, and taking a walk around the neighborhood. I took dozens of photos and videos, knowing this might be my only chance for a long time. When he got tired, I rocked him to sleep, singing the same lullaby I'd sung during my pregnancy. As I watched him sleep in my arms, I made a decision. I couldn't give up. Somehow, someway, I had to be part of his life. Not just as auntie, but as someone who truly loved him. My mom got home just as he was waking up from his nap. She seemed surprised to find everything so calm and peaceful. He's usually fussy after sleeping, she commented, watching as I changed his diaper. We had a good day, I said simply. My mom hesitated, then said, Vanessa called while I was out. She and Greg are still fighting. She asked if I could keep him overnight. My heart raced. I can stay and help. To my surprise, my mom nodded. That would be good, actually. My back's been acting up. That night, after my son was asleep in the portable crib in my old bedroom, my mom and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. There was an awkward silence between us. You're good with him, she finally said. He responds to you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying. Vanessa tries, but she trailed off, staring into her mug. It doesn't come naturally to her. I took a deep breath. Mom, there's something you should know. I told her everything. The surrogacy, the promise, the betrayal. I showed her the screenshots Megan had sent me. As I talked, my mom's face went through a range of emotions. Surprise, disbelief, anger, and finally, a deep sadness. Why didn't you tell us? She asked when I finished. Vanessa made me promise not to. She said it would be easier if everyone thought the baby was mine from the start. Then when she took him, she threatened to cut me off completely if I told anyone the truth. My mom was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I had no idea. We stayed up late talking. My mom admitted she'd noticed things. How distant Vanessa seemed from the baby. How she was always pawning him off on others. How she seemed more interested in the attention than the actual parenting. I thought she was just struggling with new motherhood, my mom said. I never imagined. The next morning, Vanessa showed up early, looking tired and irritable. She barely acknowledged me as she gathered my son's things. Thanks for watching him, she said to my mom, not me. Greg and I worked things out. We're fine now. My mom gave me a look. I could tell she wanted to say something, but not with Vanessa there. As Vanessa was strapping my son into his car seat, my mom pulled me aside. Come for dinner tomorrow night, she whispered. Your father needs to hear all this too. I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. That afternoon, I got a text from Greg. We need to talk again. Same place, 4 p.m. I arrived at the park feeling nervous. Greg was already there, pacing back and forth. I confronted Vanessa, he said as soon as I sat down, about the surrogacy, about the lies. What did she say? She admitted everything. Said she was afraid I wouldn't agree to a surrogate, so she pretended to be pregnant. Said she always intended to raise the baby, that you misunderstood. I shook my head. That's not true. She specifically said she didn't want to be a mother, just wanted the genetic connection. Greg ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I do know one thing. She's not the person I thought she was. We talked for almost an hour. Greg told me Vanessa had been acting strange lately. Secretive, defensive, spending hours on her phone. He'd assumed it was just new parent stress. Now he wondered what else she might be hiding. As we were about to leave, Greg hesitated. There's one more thing. Vanessa's planning to move out of state, not just to a new school district. She's talking about Colorado, to be near her college friend Donna. My blood ran cold. When? Soon. She's already looking at houses online. I thanked Greg for telling me and headed straight to my car. I needed to talk to my parents right away. If Vanessa took my son out of state, I might never see him again. When I got to my parents' house, my dad was home alone. My mom had gone shopping. I told him everything. The surrogacy, Vanessa's lies, and now the plan to move out of state. My dad listened in stunned silence. When I finished, he just sat there shaking his head. I always knew Vanessa could be selfish, he said finally. But this is something else. For the first time, I saw real anger in my dad's eyes. Not at me, but at the situation. At what Vanessa had done. We'll figure this out, he promised. As a family. The the right way. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about my son being taken thousands of miles away, about only seeing him on holidays, if at all, about him growing up not knowing who I really was. I got up and started writing everything down, every detail of the surrogacy agreement, every promise Vanessa had made, every moment since the birth when she'd shown herself to be more interested in the idea of motherhood than the reality. By morning, I had pages and pages of notes. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, but it felt good to get it all out, to have a record of the truth. My phone rang just after 7 a.m. It was my mom. "Come over for breakfast," she said, her voice urgent. "Your father and I have been talking. We have a plan." I rushed over to my parents' place so fast I nearly got a speeding ticket. When I arrived, my mom was making pancakes while my dad sat at the kitchen table with a serious look on his face. They both looked like they hadn't slept much either. "Sit down," my dad said, pushing a cup of coffee toward me. "We've been up all night talking about this." I sat down, my hands shaking a little as I took the coffee. My mom put a plate of pancakes in front of me, but I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. "We believe you," my mom said, sitting down next to me. "And we're ashamed we didn't see what was happening sooner." My dad nodded. "Your mother and I have decided we need to confront Vanessa, all of us together, today." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Today? But what about her threats about the restraining order?" "Let her try," my dad said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "We have the truth on our side now." My mom reached over and squeezed my hand. "We called Vanessa and told her to come over for a family meeting. We said it was about helping with the move." I couldn't believe this was happening. After all these months of being gaslit and pushed aside, my parents were finally on my side. I felt tears welling up but tried to hold them back. "What's the plan exactly?" I asked. My dad leaned forward. "We tell her we know everything. About the surrogacy. About her lies to Greg. About her plans to move out of state. We tell her it stops now." It sounded so simple when he said it like that. But I knew Vanessa. She wouldn't just admit everything and apologize. "And if she denies it all?" I asked. "She can't," my mom said. "Not anymore. Greg called your father last night. He's coming too. And he's bringing all the medical records he found." My jaw dropped. I hadn't expected Greg to get this involved. Maybe he was a better person than I'd given him credit for. We spent the next hour going over what we would say. My mom made more coffee. My dad paced around the kitchen. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a text from Vanessa canceling the meeting. Around 11 a.m., the doorbell rang. My dad went to answer it while my mom and I stayed in the kitchen. I heard Greg's voice first, then Vanessa's, asking why Greg was there. Then I heard my son babbling happily as they came inside. My mom squeezed my hand one more time before we walked into the living room together. Vanessa was standing near the door, holding my son. She looked confused and a little annoyed. Greg stood off to the side, his face grim. "What's going on?" Vanessa asked, looking around at all of us. "Mom said you wanted to talk about helping with the move." My dad gestured to the couch. "Sit down, Vanessa. We need to have a family discussion." Something in his tone must have warned her, because she clutched my son tighter and remained standing. "About what?" "About the truth," my mom said quietly. "About the surrogacy. About all the lies." Vanessa's face went pale. She looked at Greg, who wouldn't meet her eyes, then at me with pure hatred. "You!" she hissed. "You turned them against me." I shook my head. "No, Vanessa. Your own actions did that." My dad stepped forward. "We know everything, honey. About how you promised your sister she could raise the baby. About how you lied to Greg about being pregnant. About how you're planning to take our grandson out of state without even discussing it with us." Vanessa's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal. "That's not. She's twisting things. She's always been jealous of me." Greg finally spoke up. "I found the medical records, Vanessa. I know you weren't pregnant. I know you lied to me for months." My son started fussing in Vanessa's arms, picking up on the tension in the room. She bounced him distractedly, still looking for a way out. "So what?" she finally said, her voice hard. "So I used a surrogate. So I didn't tell everyone every little detail. He's still my son. My egg, Greg's sperm. That's all that matters legally." My mom stepped forward. "This isn't about legalities, Vanessa. This is about right and wrong. About the promises you made to your sister. About the family you're tearing apart." Vanessa laughed, a cold sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, please. She's fine. She can have another baby if she wants one so badly." That stung. She knew I'd always struggled with fertility issues, which was part of why the surrogacy had seemed like such a perfect solution. I'd get to experience pregnancy and have a child I was connected to, even if not genetically. My son was really crying now, reaching his arms out toward me. Without thinking, I stepped forward and took him from Vanessa. He immediately calmed down, laying his head on my shoulder. "See?" my dad said quietly. "He knows. Babies always know." Vanessa's face twisted with anger. "Give him back, now." I held him tighter, breathing in his sweet baby smell. "Vanessa, please. Can't we work something out? Some kind of shared custody? I'm not trying to take him away from you. I just want to be part of his life." For a moment, I thought I saw something soften in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold, calculating look I knew too well. "There's nothing to work out," she said. "He's my son legally. End of story." Greg stepped forward then. "Actually, Vanessa, that's not entirely true." We all turned to look at him. He pulled some papers from his jacket pocket. "I've been talking to a lawyer," he said, "about divorce." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "Divorce? Are you serious? Over this?" Greg nodded. "Over the lies. Over all of it. And in the divorce, I'm going to request a custody evaluation. A thorough one." I hadn't expected this at all. From the look on Vanessa's face, neither had she. "You can't do that," she said, but she sounded less certain now. "I can and I will," Greg said, "unless we can come to an agreement. All of us. Right now." My heart was racing. I looked down at my son, who was playing with my necklace, completely oblivious to the life-changing conversation happening around him. "What kind of agreement?" Vanessa asked suspiciously. Greg looked at me, then back at Vanessa. "Shared custody. Between all three of us. You, me, and your sister." Vanessa started shaking her head before he even finished. "No way. Absolutely not." "Then I'll see you in court," Greg said simply. "And I'll make sure the judge knows everything. About the surrogacy. About how you've been treating the baby. About all of it." My mom stepped in then. "Vanessa, honey, please think about what's best for the baby. He needs all of you. He needs stability and love. And he needs to stay here," my dad added. "Not be taken across the country away from his family." Vanessa looked around the room, realizing she was outnumbered. "This is ridiculous. You're all ganging up on me." "No," I said quietly. "We're standing up for what's right. For what you promised me." My son reached up and patted my face, making that little gurgling sound he always made when he was happy. Vanessa watched, her expression unreadable. "I need to think," she finally said. "This is too much all at once." Greg nodded. "Take some time, but not too much. I've already talked to the lawyer. The paperwork is ready." Vanessa glared at him, then at me, then at our parents. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The room was silent for a moment. Then my son let out a happy squeal real and we all laughed, the tension breaking a little. Well, my dad said, that went about as well as could be expected. I looked Greg, did you really talk to a lawyer? He nodded. Yesterday, after we met at the park. I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about everything, about what kind of example we're setting for him. He nodded toward my son. I meant what I said about the custody evaluation. If she won't agree to something fair, I'll fight for it. I didn't know what to say. This man I barely knew was willing to go to bat for me, for my son. Thank you, I finally managed. My mom came over and put her arm around me. It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out. For the first time in months, I actually believed it might be true. The next few days were tense. Vanessa wasn't answering calls from any of us. Greg stayed at a hotel, texting me updates when he could. My parents took turns calling Vanessa, leaving voicemails asking her to be reasonable. I went back to work, trying to focus on normal life while waiting for the other shoe to drop. My therapist told me to prepare for a long battle, that people like Vanessa rarely gave in easily. Then, 4 days after our confrontation, I got a text from Vanessa. We need to talk, just us. Come to my house tomorrow at 2. I showed the text to my parents and Greg. They all thought it might be a trap, that she might be recording the conversation to use against me somehow. But I had to go. This was my chance. The next day, I drove to Vanessa's house with my stomach in knots. I'd barely slept, going over and over what I would say. As I pulled into her driveway, I noticed the moving boxes stacked by the garage. She really was planning to leave. Vanessa answered the door looking tired. My son was nowhere in sight. He's napping, she said, noticing me looking around. We can talk in the kitchen. I followed her inside, past half-packed boxes and rolled up rugs. In the kitchen, she poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down across from me. I've been thinking, she said without preamble, about what Greg said, about court. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. I don't want that, she continued. A custody battle. Everyone knowing our business, the stress. I don't want that either, I said carefully. Vanessa stirred her coffee, not looking at me. Greg's serious about the divorce. He's already moved most of his things out. I hadn't known that. I felt a pang of guilt, even though none of this was my fault. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, she was still my sister. Vanessa shrugged. It was coming anyway, probably. We haven't been happy for a while. She finally looked up at me, but I'm not giving up my son. I'm not asking you to, I said quickly. I just want to be part of his life. A real part, not just auntie who gets pushed aside. Vanessa was quiet for a long time. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator. I was jealous, she finally said, so quietly I almost missed it. What? When he was born. The way he looked at you. The way everyone said he had your smile, your eyes, even though that's impossible. She traced a pattern on the table with her finger. I was supposed to be his mother, but you carried him. You felt him kick. You gave birth to him. I couldn't compete with that. I was stunned. In all my anger and hurt, I'd never considered that Vanessa might have been jealous of me. So I took him, she continued. I told myself I had the right, that legally he was mine, that I was just taking what belonged to me. Vanessa, she held up a hand. Let me finish. I've been thinking about this for days. She took a deep breath. I'm not moving to Colorado. I felt a rush of relief so strong it made me dizzy. Greg and I talked last night, really talked for the first time in months. We're going to try counseling, see if we can work things out, for our son's sake. I nodded, afraid to hope too much yet. And she hesitated. We're willing to discuss a visitation arrangement, the 3 of us, like Greg suggested. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Really? Vanessa nodded. It won't be easy. We'll need mediators. It'll take time to figure out all the details. And legally, it would probably be more of a private agreement for visitation rights, rather than formal custody, since you're not a legal parent. I don't care, I said quickly. Whatever it takes. I just want to be in his life. Just then, we heard crying from the baby monitor on the counter. My son was awake. Vanessa stood up. Come on, she said. Let's go get him together. As we walked up the stairs side by side, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness exactly. That would take much longer. But a beginning. A chance to heal what had been broken. My son was standing in his crib, tears on his cheeks. When he saw us, he reached out both arms, not choosing between us. Without discussing it, we each took one of his hands. It's been 6 months since that day. Things aren't perfect, but they're better. We have a formal agreement now, signed by all 3 of us. I have my son 3 days a week. Greg has him 2 days. Vanessa has him on weekends. We all come together for important events. Greg and Vanessa are still in counseling. I don't know if their marriage will survive, but they're trying, which is more than I expected. My parents have been amazing, supporting all of us through this strange new family arrangement. My son is thriving. He's walking now, getting into everything. He calls me mama and Vanessa mommy. Sometimes it still hurts, knowing I'll always have to share him, Nadev. But then I remember those dark months when I thought I'd lost him completely, and I'm grateful for what I have. Last week, Vanessa brought over a box of things she'd kept from my pregnancy. The ultrasound pictures, my hospital bracelet, the little hat they put on him when he was born. She said she was sorry for hiding them, that she'd been wrong about so many things. I'm not naive enough to think everything is fixed. Vanessa and I still have our moments of tension and jealousy. There are still days when I look at her and feel angry about what she did, but we're trying, for our son's sake. Yesterday we took him to the park together, Vanessa and me. We sat on a bench watching him play in the sandbox, these 2 very different sisters with our very complicated history. And for a moment, as he looked up and waved at both of us, I felt something like peace.